Number 5. Jeremiah 4:23-26. Young Earth creationists often assert that Genesis 1 cannot be read to mean anything other than a literal 6-day creation of the cosmos. When theistic evolutionists interpret it to mean something else, they are reading that into the text. But it seems the prophet Jeremiah used very similar language from Genesis 1 to metaphorically describe the fallen northern kingdom of Israel. In Jeremiah 4, the prophet is warning Judah that they will be desolated, like the northern kingdom, if they do not repent, and in doing so, he described what happened in northern Israel by heavily borrowing from Genesis 1. He says northern Israel is now formless and void. There is no light, no man, no birds of the air, and no vegetation. Even the very conservative scholar, John MacArthur, acknowledges the language was taken from Genesis 1 and is used in reverse to speak of what happened in northern Israel. But this language does not mean the fabric of space-time opened up and sucked out the land of the northern kingdom. The sun was still literally shining on the region. There were still humans, and there was no reason to believe birds refused to fly over the area or that no plants grew. Jeremiah is simply using this language to metaphorically say the northern kingdom no longer functions properly. But if the same language is used in reverse in Genesis 1, that implies all it is saying is God took a disordered cosmos and made it function properly for human civilizations to begin. Thus, within the scriptures itself, the implication is the language of Genesis 1 does not mean literal material creation, and therefore does not necessarily refer to a literal 6-day creation.
Okay. Again, I'll mention this now, that on most of these points, it doesn't necessarily mean this. It could mean this. In other words, it's not really causing any problems for anybody. Because it could mean this, but there's no reason why it can't also mean this. See, he's not really presenting any problems. He's just simply presenting his reasoning why he doesn't believe in a young earth. None of these reasons so far actually, and I'll even say none of the reasons that he presents actually present a problem for the young earth belief. None of it does. And the very terms that he's using in trying to present this prove that it doesn't present a problem. But anyways, that's beside the point. So Jeremiah used the creation story as a metaphor for the destruction of Israel. That proves nothing. I mean, Paul used the story of Abraham, Sarah, and Hagar as a metaphor for the house of Israel and the Gentiles. Does that mean that the story of Hagar and Sarah and Abraham is all symbolic and metaphorical? No. People use true events to illustrate concepts and ideas all the time. So just because Jeremiah used the terminology of the creation as a metaphor for the destruction of the northern kingdom, in no way logically indicates that anything in the creation account itself is anything but a literal creation account. It also has no bearing on the 6 days. So there's no connection there. And he doesn't make a connection except saying that, well, Jeremiah was being metaphorical, so we might as well assume that this was metaphorical too. There's no connection there. That's a leap of logic that makes no sense. Now, me personally, when it comes to the creation and the 6 days, I don't really take, it's not a 24-hour period, we'll say. For one thing, a day, as Peter tells us, that a day to God is 1,000 years to mortal man. So if we take that view, then the creation took 6,000 years. or only 6,000 mortal years, Earth years, but only 6 days to God. Or we take the view, which is most common, really, that the term day simply refers to a period of time, meaning that the creation was accomplished in 6 phases, and each phase we refer to as a day. Or at least we translate the Hebrew into day, although I understand that the Hebrew term actually just means time period, not literal day, not a literal 24-hour period. So there's that. But there's no the main point here is that there's no connection between the age of the earth, or even the literal or non-literal nature of the creation account in Genesis. There's no relation of any of that to Jeremiah. See, and as I said, he makes his claim, oh, because Jeremiah did this, we might as well believe this. But my question to him would be, why? Very simple. Why can I not believe? What is the issue? What is the problem with me believing in a young earth and yet saying that Jeremiah used this language as a metaphor? Where is the faulty logic in that conclusion? Anyways, pausing again.
Number 4, Genesis 1, 14-19. The most popular objection used against young earth creationism is the fact that nights and days exist before the sun, which is created on day 4. Days and nights cannot exist without the earth rotating and moving around the sun. Young earth believers often reply by suggesting maybe there was another light source, or they will argue that God made the light on day 1 and then gathered it together into the sun on day 4. But this seems unlikely, since Genesis 1 talks about the sun and the moon being created together as lights, and the composition of the moon is not the same as the sun. You cannot gather light together to make the moon. It only reflects light from the sun. Also, you just cannot separate the sun into pieces and have the same resulting chemistry necessary to provide sunlight for plants, supposedly created on day 3. This whole response from young earth creationists is simply contrived and ad hoc. A more likely explanation is the sun and moon are just elected to serve as signs for seasons and for days and years, instead of being materially created. And this is what Genesis 1 is actually saying. Number 3.
Okay, no, this is not what Genesis is actually saying. It is actually true, the light was created first. It states that. I think it's verse 3. God said, "Let there be light." And God separated the light from the darkness, and the light he called day, and the darkness he called night. Why is it that we call the daytime? Why is it that we call the time period where the sun is shining the day, and the period where the moon is bright the night? Why do we do that? Because that's what it says in Genesis. Quite literally, that's where we get it from. Because God created day and night first. And then, when he had light to work with, and he had darkness, and he had measured out time, then he started his creation of everything else. And on day 4, he made the sun. He didn't gather light together and coalesce it. No. He made the sun. He took... Oh, sorry. Let me fix that. Sorry about that. Yes. He gathered gases together, struck a match, and ignited the sun. However you want to think about it. But light already existed in some form. We don't understand exactly how. But light existed. And it shone on the earth. And it measured out time. There was already day, and there was already night. And then God created the sun, and he created the moon, and he put the sun to rule the day and the moon to rule the night. That's what it says. Why should we take any other view? See, this one is actually saying, because our modern sensibilities disagree with this, because we can't conceive of day and night existing without the rotation of the earth, therefore it can't exist without the rotation of the earth. That's how we perceive day and night, therefore that's the only way to perceive day and night, is by the rotation of the earth. But that's not necessary. It's not necessarily the only way to perceive it. God made light in whatever form it was. Light became, he called the light day, and he called the darkness night. And that was the first thing. And he did it to measure out time. Therefore, he counted his days and his nights by some other method than by the rotation of the sun. Oh, sorry, not the rotation of the sun, the rotation of the earth. That's all it is. But more to the point, who cares? Why does this have any bearing on the age of the earth? See, taking the creation account and saying because it might be somewhat symbolic or metaphorical and that we don't understand exactly how it was done, that the only way to look at it is that the earth is millions of years old. That makes no sense. Why can't we take the creation and say, well, we don't understand because, God did it and we're not God. We don't understand how he created everything. But he did it, 6,000 years ago. Quite honestly, I don't know how long ago he created it because we don't know how long Adam and Eve were in the garden before they ate the fruit. The fall of Adam was 6,000 years ago. We don't know when the creation was. So, again, what's the problem? Their argument is saying that, well, the earth had to have existed before the creation ever started because you had to have days. Yeah, doesn't matter. You just need another way to mark time. That's all. A day and night, that's just time. And God had a different way of marking time than we do. That's all it means.